Hello everyone and welcome back to 3D Drawing for Model Railway. I've just taken the test print of the chassis off of the printer. As expected, it didn't really work quite how I wanted. There's a couple of issues. The biggest one really is with this rigid frame and a bogie, it wasn't able to go round the corners as I like. There's a couple of things that we have to change for it to be able to work as is, but to be able to get it to go around corners, I've been speaking to a couple of people. There's a couple of options that we've sort of come up with. First of all is to make the chassis wider, so that will give a little bit more lateral play with the wheel sets. So hopefully that will help to be able to stop it jumping off the tracks as it goes around the corners. The other is potentially this middle axle, to put a plastic wheel in there and just file off the flangeway, because potentially having these three axles by themselves would quite happily go around the corners, but when this was added it wasn't able to. So potentially taking this middle axle out might give that a little bit more flexibility. And then the third option would be to turn this into a bogie by itself, which is the least desirable of the options, but it's something that might have to happen. Another issue that I was encountering was because of the proximity of the end of the bogie here to the bottom of the buffer beam here, this was fouling when it was trying to turn. So one option I'm going to try and do there, or one thing I think I'm going to have to do, is to remove the bottom of the buffer beam. The compromise there will be, as you can see, we've got the bottom of the buffer head sits below the chassis. So the easiest thing to do would be to just drag off that bottom and leave it flush. But what I'm thinking of doing is just moving the buffer upwards so it's out of the way. Another option would be potentially lower the bogie down a little bit, but again, that's, we're looking at moving this whole thing down 0.5 millimeter just to get clear of that, which I don't think is going to work. I think we're going to have to remove this part of the buffer and move that buffer head up slightly. So in this video I'm going to show you what changes I'm going to make, and then I'm going to print another test and see how that affects the final model. Okay, so if we go into the chassis, make sure that radio button's checked, I'm going to turn the crane body off. Okay, let's jump the history forwards and we'll start working our way back. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the mirror of the body. Come back to here. Okay. Yeah, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to extend the width of the body just simply by creating it to be slightly wider. So I think I'm going to want about 1.2 millimeters in total, so I'm going to extend it by 0.6. That's option number one, really, and hopefully that would fix it. Okay, if we jump back to the end, let's let that compute. Okay, so that hasn't actually changed it. So if we come back down to the mirror, edit the feature, let's have a look, see what's happened. Yeah, it's missing the plane. So if we just select missing plane, reselect that surface, that will then change that width back where we want it to be. So hopefully once it's done this, we should have 13.2 millimeters between the side frames. Inspect, we can measure them. Yep, 13.2 there. And if we do the same inspection on the bogie, hopefully it's done the same there. Yep, 13.2. So we've changed those, which has hopefully fixed that issue. The next thing we'll look at is these channels in here. They were fouling the bogies, it was trying to pivot. So if we roll the history back to where those channels are. Okay, so they're back. Ooh, hate it when you press the wrong button. going to change the width on this one to 4.5 millimeters to give it a little bit more room to swing the wheels around. So I've made that little channel a bit wider. I'm going to do the same on this one. So I'm going to go into the sketch here, edit that one, delete that constraint there. I'm going to add it to the other end here. I'm going to change that to 1. I'm going to extend that to 19 millimeters, and I'm going to exchange that to 4.5 and this one to 1.5. So that's all level there now. Okay, so that channel's now wider. Again, we've got the width on the bogies where we want it to be. I'm just looking forward through the history to find the next part. Okay, this part here is going to need to be moved because it's offset slightly, I think. This needs to be 8 millimeters to put that point centered. Okay, so the next thing on the bogie motor is we're going to take these corners off here because this point in the corner was foul in the back of the wheel. So if we just draw simple lines across these corners here like this, and then we can select those 4 triangles and extrude them upwards. I think -4 should cut those. Yeah. And move through the history. Okay, these bits, I'm going to remove these. So that, delete, and that one, delete. What I'm going to change now is if I come to sectional analysis, select that bottom surface and just scroll up so that I can see the bottom of the boss here. Oops, back on. I'm going to extrude those two half circles here. I'm going to extrude those to that surface there. Which I know that I've just took the square parts out, but the square parts were sitting further proud, so just making that round would be better. Okay, so the next little change I'm going to make is I'm going to try and see if we can fix this without affecting the buffers. So I'm going to turn off the body here of the chassis. I'm going to move the bogie down -0.3. So that's going to sit a little bit lower. I'm then going to raise up the top of the cross member here 0.3. So that essentially should have the whole thing just sitting that little bit lower. So the corner here is sort of level here. And then the next thing I'm going to change is I'm just going to cut the corner off the bogie here. So if I draw a little triangle piece across, like that, and let's define that as 0.8. That I'm taking as close to that detail as I can. You're not, I don't think you're going to notice if I take this off in the wagon. I don't think you're going to notice it when it's running round, so Just going to drag that all the way across so it cuts off both sides. Hopefully that will give that a little bit of room just to swing around on the bottom here. Okay? And then the last thing I want to do is on that buffer beam there, I'm going to draw a line. Let's draw that line on that corner. Across to the other side. And then extrude that the width of the buffer beam. Okay, so have a look at where we're at now. So hopefully what we've achieved there is just giving that a little bit of play to swing without hitting the bogey. If it does need changing, then yeah, so be it. I'll have to potentially file this off on the model that I print off here and see how that works. Because we've moved this down, all of this lot needs to be moved down as well. Okay, so to be able to move these down, what I'm going to have to do is split this body, but I'm going to have to do that for the other test anyhow to create the bogey. So I'm going to create it at the end of the sketch history. I'm just going to spin this round, turn the bogey off, and we'll do split body. Body to split is going to be the main body. I'm going to use the splitting tool as that top surface. That's going to split everything above and below that surface into two parts. So we will have to join several of the parts back together. You can see it's created all these separate bodies. We now find so 114 and 116, turn those off, and we combine everything else that's left. So target body is going to be number 1, and then all the rest of them we're just going to join together. Okay, so these two are now completely separate. If I select them both, right click, move, and they're going to come downwards minus 0.3. So that's moved them down. That should be in line. Axle box is in line with the bogey here. If I turn that top body off, and then you can select these two top surfaces and extrude them. Turn the main body back on and extrude them to that top surface. Tell it to join. Okay, so what we've got here. Oops, let's have a look at that. That's not done how I wanted it to do. Let's turn that back off. Do it the other way. We want to maintain that as body 1. So we're going to extrude 0.3, and then we're going to tell it to combine body 1 as a target, and then those two. Body 1 as a target, and then those two to join onto it. So we maintain body 1 as the chassis. Okay, so yeah, they're in line now. Okay, so I'm going to try and print that as it is and see how that works. That's the first thing. So if we 3D print that, turn that off, select that body. Chassis test 2, and then with 3D print the bogey separately as well. And that's going to be bogey test 2. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is going to go back and change this into a bogey. So first thing, if I save that actually, I'm going to suppress these two features here, which were the extrusion upwards and the combine of these two. So if I just click on them and do suppress features, they stay there, they just don't do anything, they don't work, essentially they're turned off. So we've now got this as a separate piece. What we're going to do is turn it into a bogey. So we're going to have to draw the mounting points, I need them to be in line with the mid plane or the midpoint of this. So if we, first of all, let's draw this bogey pivot point. So we'll get a sketch in the bottom plane here. Find that midpoint. And go and draw it there. Set 8mm. And I'm going to check position to see where I am with regards to that. There you go, that's pretty close. To find the distance from there to the midpoint. Okay, so let's first of all we'll extrude those two bits downwards. They've gone down. Okay, let's sketch back. And we'll extrude these back upwards. And that's going to be the same height as that one there. Okay, so the next thing we're going to create a sketch on that top surface. Again, another centre point circle. 3.75, 3 point, why is it doing that? 3 point, no, it's not writing properly for me, it's not being helpful. Okay, 3.75, why is it not liking it? Not 3.75, okay, weird. And then we can extrude that to that top surface, 5mm, and we've got to drill the hole in the middle, so again, create a circle. I can't actually remember what size we did, so let's inspect that. So 1.75. 1.75. And then extrude that inwards to that inner surface. And that should have cut that out. Okay, so we've now got the bogey pivot point. Let's go back through these sketches. Minimize those. Okay, so to create the bogey cross member here, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to create a copy of the bogey and paste it to the side. Click on it. Okay, so we've got this separate bogey. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to split it into 3. So we can split the body using that splitting tool and holding shift, that splitting 2. So I'm creating 2 splitting tools there, essentially creating 3 parts. So I've got that one and those 2. So I'm going to remove that and remove that, which leaves me the centre part here. And then I can copy that, so I can move that across into position where we need it. So that's 63.26 across. And I'm going to rename that. Rename that bogey 2. And then I'm going to combine. Target is going to be bogey 2. Tool bodies are going to be the 2 side frames. Click on OK. That should stay named bogey 2. Let's create some of these funny lines. Let's go back and forth in the sketches. That fixes them. Okay, so we've now got 2 bogey system. Okay, so again we can just file and 3D print. So we're going to need to do the body again because we created this extra boss here. Click on OK. And that's going to be chassis test 3. And 3D print bogey, which is going to be bogey test 3. Okay, so I'm going to stick these on the printer and run this test off, see how we get on. Hopefully this one will work. If it doesn't, obviously I'll come back with any updates that I might need to do in future. I hope you enjoyed this video and what potential changes we're going to need to make. If you have, please obviously make sure you like and subscribe to the video, it does help. Thanks.